full name is Max Jeffrey Kuney IV, and I worked for the Max J. Kuney Company when I was president in 2006. So when I was president, I had Chris Kopczynski and Walt Henneke were coming along behind me. Ahead of me were Ken Schwartz and Jim Parrish. So the biggest issue I faced when I was president, and it wasn't one we were planning on having be a theme for the year or this is what we wanted to tackle, but it was our apprenticeship program. Our open shop apprenticeship program ran into some real difficulties. They were how it was being financed and how it was being run and who was running it. It actually, that was pretty much dominated my time as president, was getting that back on an even keel, because on the one hand, we needed to fix it. It's important to a lot of our members. On the other hand, there were people that were very loyal to the existing program and were worried that we were somehow going to ruin it. So it was making sure that, the Ellers and the Cargiles and Dave Shea was a big supporter at the time, that they were comfortable with that we were saving the program, not ruining the program. And being a union contractor in charge of saving the open shop apprenticeship program, they might have been skeptical that I was really trying to do that, but that was what we were trying to do, because it was important for our members to make sure that was going to continue, and obviously it's thriving today. But it was a rocky year for the apprenticeship program. One of the really cool things you get to do when you go through the chairs is the leadership meetings back in Washington, D.C. You get to really hear from some top-notch people in all levels of the government. There were definitely times when you got to go to the get a briefing in the White House, kind of thing. You're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. I didn't expect that. So those are fun, and then when you do that, you got to go to Philomena's for dinner. That's kind of a rule. But to me, those were some of the interesting trips you get to take, and frankly, the people you get to meet. I've still got friends that I met over the years through AGC. It was pretty good, as I recall. Being a WSDOT contractor primarily, we had a bunch of work. WSDOT was bidding work, so it wasn't one of their down cycles where they're broke. It felt pretty good. They just passed a gas tax in 2005, so that was the nickel gas tax. So that was definitely fueling projects in my part of the world. As far as the rest of and that was kind of obviously, when you got later into the 2000s, that's when we had the big crash, but we were on the build up to that, so everything was kind of growing and looking pretty good. So what I remember about the AGC staff, again, we may have to go back and edit that previous question. That would have been, because Tom was a few years ahead of me, so then that would have been Wayne Brokaw as chapter exec. And Wayne was the greatest, and Cheryl may have been here by then too. I think so. We had the Wayne and Cheryl team, which was, that was great. Wayne knew everybody. You couldn't go anywhere without everybody knowing, nationally who he was. And you could see, it was pretty easy to see over time that he was mentoring Cheryl to take over, which has obviously worked out fantastic. So I think we had a great team running the AGC at that time, for sure. Well, I was literally pretty much born into it, fourth generation family business. The nice thing was it was never assumed or expected. It was pretty clear if any of us wanted to get into the business, it would be our choice. And if nobody did, then nobody did. But actually, I'm the oldest of four, and two of my siblings are in the business as well right now. So there's three of us running it. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it. I did survey crew during the summers, on the dumb end of the survey crew, pounding hubs and doing all that stuff. Spent a lot of time on Mercer Island when they rebuilt I-90 across Mercer Island. We did a bunch of that work, so I did a lot of blue topping on Mercer Island and hacking my way through the blackberry bushes for slope staking and all that good stuff. And then got out of college and immediately went to the Wallace Viaduct and spent most of the summer there, and had an apartment in Kellogg and worked in Wallace. And then we got another job on Mercer Island, and they said, "You want to stay in Wallace or do you want to go to Mercer Island?" I'm like, "I'm out of here." Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'll go to Seattle. You better believe it. I actually know people there. So that's what I did. And then over the years, I've kind of done all the jobs: estimator, project manager. I headed up our design build pursuits for pretty much still do, but when that was a thing back in about the late 90s, 2000, took that on as, because it was a brand new thing. Nobody knew anything about it, so it's like, all right, here, you do it. Along the way, I was the IT director because I was the youngest one in the office, so they figured I knew the most about computers. So, that was about all it took to become the IT director back in the early 90s. So, but yeah, that's how I got into construction. Sure. Let's see. Let's see. We built the Wallace Viaduct. That's the longest bridge we've ever built, about 4,500 feet long. We did the emergency replacement for the Skagit River Bridge when it got knocked down by a truck. That was an emergency design build that we built the replacement span in less than 90 days. That was quite a project. We did the repair on the Wanapum Dam when it had a crack and was about to fail and probably drown the Tri-Cities. That was an interesting one. When you look at the history of the company, a lot of the elevated structure of I-90 through downtown we built. The Washington-Stevens couplet, the bridges there over the river. A lot of Expo 74 projects. These days now we're building light rail for Sound Transit over in Seattle. But it's interesting, when I was president, I looked it up because I was thinking it was about right. We were just finishing the Farwell Road project, which were the first bridges on the North Spokane corridor. That was the first bridge contract. It was the 4 bridges over Farwell. We finished that in 2006, the year I was president. So I think we've built 13 bridges in total on the NSC. There have been a lot. We've made a lot of improvements in safety that are really good. I think back to my survey days of climbing up and down walls, and frankly, the way we were doing it back then, I'd fire myself today because you can't do that anymore, nor should you. You shouldn't have been doing it then. But so lots of improvements in safety. Certainly the environmental, regulations have come along, and we're all a lot smarter now. And granted, they're sometimes difficult to comply with, but necessary. And then, as a highway contractor, honestly, it's been interesting to see, just how the projects are funded. It used to be, so much federal money coming in, and now, for the last, really since 2005, and then, 2005, 2009, 2000, what was the last one, 15, this state has stepped up and funded its own highway program to a great extent when the feds have kind of fallen off, and that's been interesting to watch, just because are we going to raise the gas tax? Are we not going to raise the gas tax? Is it going to go on the ballot? Do we have to raise a whole bunch of money to defend or propose an initiative? Will the lobby the legislature? It's been year after year in government affairs, listening to Tom Stewart say, "Now no one's ever lost an election by voting for a gas tax." To every single legislator, and they're all like, "Yeah, I'm still not doing it." But it's been interesting over the years to see that. But really, I think the safety and environmental are the biggest changes to the highway industry for sure. But then it's more and more challenging if things are so expensive. And some of that goes along with safety and environmental. You got to pay for those things, and the projects are just they're just getting huge. And what used to be You know, we joke around the office. It's like, what happened to that nice little $30 million interchange job? It seems like everything's 90 to 150, and you're like, good Lord, it's the same little job. It's just 3 times as expensive. So, you know, I wish we still had a set of plans for the Wallace Viaduct. I'd love to see how much that would cost to build today.
Yeah.
You know, because I think our bid was like $24 million or something like that back in '88. And if that's not a $150 million job right now, at least, it's crazy how much more expensive things have gotten. So Max J. Kuney Company belongs to the AGC for many reasons, but the number one reason is the advocacy that the AGC does at the state, local, and federal levels. We've never had a better example of that than this COVID-19 crisis. Our local chapter, the national chapter, or the national organization, I mean, the unbelievable time and effort they put into resources and training and explaining the rules that change daily on all these things has been critically important. But as well as, but that's true every year. There's always things that we need to work on our legislator with, on Congress with. I had the opportunity to testify in front of Congress for highway reauthorization, and that's really, in a nutshell, what it is. For me, it's the advocacy that AGC does, whether it's city, state, or federal level. We are the AGC.